There comes a moment in life when one must pause and listen, not to the clamor of the world, but to the whisper of the soul. Every relationship is a mirror, reflecting back fragments of who we are, both the light and the shadow. Yet, not every reflection nurtures our growth. Some entangle us in illusions, keeping us from the path of our deeper becoming. The first sign that you are not with the right person is the silence of your inner voice. When the bond suppresses your individuality, when your own essence feels unseen, you begin to live as a shadow of yourself. True connection must not demand the sacrifice of the self. It must instead call it forth in its fullness. Another sign lies in the absence of growth. A healthy union awakens the archetype of transformation, urging you toward wholeness. But if the relationship chains you to stagnation, if it denies you the courage to confront your own unconscious, then it is not a vessel of becoming but a prison of fear. Pay attention also to the feeling of isolation within togetherness. One may sit beside another and yet feel profoundly alone. This loneliness is not the solitude of the soul, which can be enriching, but the emptiness born of disconnection. It signals that the psychic energy between two beings no longer flows, but has withered. The wrong companion will often awaken only your mask, the persona you wear for the world, while the right one will stir your deeper self, even the shadow, into awareness. If you find that you are constantly performing, hiding, or shrinking, then you are not in the presence of authenticity, but in the theater of pretense. Finally, the greatest sign is the loss of meaning. For life without meaning is unbearable to the soul. If a relationship dims your sense of purpose, if it clouds your vision of the future rather than illuminating it, then it is a sign that your psyche is calling you elsewhere. Remember, love is not meant to bind you into unconsciousness, but to awaken you to the fullness of your being. The right bond is not perfect, nor free of conflict, for conflict itself is the forge of growth. But it must lead you toward individuation, not away from it. To remain where the soul does not flourish is to betray the deeper self. And so the greatest act of courage is not to cling, but to listen to the call within, the call that guides you toward wholeness, toward authenticity, and toward the love that resonates with your true nature. The first sign that you are not with the right person lies in the loss of your inner voice, that subtle whisper of the soul that guides you toward authenticity and truth. To understand this, one must first realize that the human spirit is not silent by nature. Within each of us there exists a quiet current, an inner compass that directs us toward paths of meaning and self-discovery. When you are aligned with the right presence, this voice grows clearer, stronger, and more alive, for the bond between two individuals should never muffle the individuality of either. It should instead amplify the essence of each soul, creating a space where both can fully breathe. But if you find that your voice is growing faint, that your true thoughts, feelings, and desires are consistently suppressed or ignored, then it is not love that surrounds you but a shadow of it. The loss of the inner voice manifests in subtle ways at first. Perhaps you hesitate before speaking your truth, fearful of judgment, rejection, or conflict. Perhaps you find yourself tailoring your words to fit what the other wishes to hear, rather than what springs authentically from your own heart. Over time, this hesitation becomes habitual, and the voice within that once guided you toward your deepest longings grows weak, almost imperceptible. You may even begin to doubt its existence, confusing silence for harmony, when in reality it is the silence of self-abandonment. This is a profound danger, for when the soul is silenced, the path toward wholeness is obscured. Jung teaches us that the self longs to be realized in its fullness. Individuation, the process of becoming whole, demands that we listen to our own depths, acknowledge our own truths, and bring light to the hidden aspects of our being. If a relationship asks you to sever this process, to mute the self in order to maintain connection, then it is not a union of souls, but a compromise of the spirit. Love is not meant to suffocate, it is meant to awaken. The right person calls forth your authentic voice, even when that voice speaks of conflict, fear, or longing. The wrong one demands silence, conformity, and the performance of a persona that is not truly yours. Consider how often in daily life the voice is silenced. It may occur when you laugh at jokes that do not amuse you, simply to avoid appearing cold. It may occur when you suppress tears because vulnerability is not welcome in the shared space. It may occur when you abandon your passions, your dreams, your natural inclinations, all for the sake of maintaining a fragile peace. Slowly, the authentic self retreats into the unconscious, where it waits, restless and unfulfilled. The psyche does not forget what it has hidden away. It merely conceals it until the moment arrives when it must emerge again, often through restlessness, unhappiness, or even illness. In Jungian thought, the psyche punishes the betrayal of the self with symptoms that force awareness. Anxiety, depression, emptiness, all can arise when the soul is ignored. If you are with someone and constantly feel a dull ache of inauthenticity, if you find yourself uncertain of who you are outside the context of the bond, this is not merely dissatisfaction. It is a message from the unconscious. It is telling you that your inner voice has been abandoned and longs to return. The right companion does not erase that voice. They make it ring louder, clearer, and more assured. It is important to remember that conflict itself is not the enemy. In fact, a relationship that allows for truth will invite disagreements, for no two souls are identical. But such disagreements are healthy because they stem from honesty. What is dangerous is not the presence of conflict, but the absence of voice. When you cannot speak, when you cannot reveal who you are in your entirety, your joy, your fear, your shadow, then the relationship is one of illusion. It thrives on performance, not authenticity, and illusion, though it may comfort for a time, cannot sustain the growth of the spirit. There is another danger in silencing the inner voice, the gradual identification with the persona. The persona is the mask we wear for the world, the socially acceptable image we construct to gain approval and avoid rejection. In the wrong bond, one may become trapped in this mask, playing the role expected by the other. Over time, the mask becomes so convincing that even the self forgets what lies beneath it. But the unconscious remembers, and eventually, the buried voice cries out. Sometimes it cries through dreams filled with frustration or longing. Sometimes it cries through sudden bursts of anger or sadness that seem irrational. These are the eruptions of the soul demanding to be heard again. To lose your inner voice is to lose your compass. Without it, you drift, disconnected from purpose, unable to sense what truly brings life meaning. A relationship that causes such loss is not aligned with the deeper path of the soul. For the right companion is not a silencer but a mirror, one who reflects your truth back to you, even when it is uncomfortable. The wrong one encourages you to become deaf to yourself, and in doing so, keeps you from the path of individuation. The courage required is immense, for to listen again to the inner voice often means stepping into uncertainty. It may mean facing solitude, for it is better to walk alone in truth than together in falsehood. Yet Jung reminds us that the self seeks wholeness above all else. To silence it is to betray your deepest nature, but to honor it is to move closer to authenticity, even if the cost is great. The first sign that you are not with the right person, therefore, is when you can no longer hear yourself. Your laughter feels borrowed, your words feel chosen, your silence feels heavy. When this occurs, know that it is not love you are living, but the denial of it. And true love will never require the sacrifice of the soul. The second sign that you are not with the right person is the absence of growth. Human beings are not meant to remain stagnant. The soul is always in motion, longing to expand, to transform, to encounter its own depths. Jung described life as a journey toward individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating the conscious and unconscious aspects of the self. A relationship, therefore, should act as a vessel for that process, providing both support and challenge, both comfort and confrontation. When you are aligned with someone who belongs on your path, you will feel the stirring of growth, even when it is uncomfortable, for true bonds awaken us to parts of ourselves we may have neglected or hidden. But if the relationship instead keeps you small, if it numbs your courage and discourages exploration, then it has become a place of stagnation. This absence of growth is one of the clearest signs that you are not walking alongside the right soul. Growth does not mean constant harmony, nor does it mean that everything will feel easy. In fact, the right person will often stir up your shadow, bringing forth qualities you would rather avoid, because only by facing them can you grow. There will be moments of conflict, but these conflicts serve a greater purpose. They push you to confront the parts of yourself that resist change. When the connection is right, even the struggles carry meaning, and you come away from them with greater self-knowledge. But when you are not with the right person, the struggles feel hollow, repetitive, and destructive. They do not elevate you, they drain you. They do not illuminate your path, they obscure it. Instead of transformation, there is paralysis, and instead of progress, there is only the circular movement of unresolved tension. One of the clearest ways this stagnation appears is in the death of curiosity. In the right bond, there is always a sense of exploration, of yourself, of the other, and of life itself. You feel encouraged to pursue your passions, to deepen your talents, to take risks that awaken you. But when the bond is not right, curiosity withers. You find yourself walking the same narrow path, unable to imagine a future beyond the confines of what is already known. Your dreams feel too heavy, your passions feel irrelevant, and your spirit becomes weary. This lack of movement is not simply dissatisfaction. It is a sign that the psychic energy of growth has been blocked, and the relationship is contributing to that blockage rather than helping to dissolve it. Stagnation can also be seen in the way fear is reinforced. The right connection does not remove fear, but it gives you courage to face it. The wrong one magnifies fear, keeping you chained to the familiar. You may find yourself avoiding new experiences, unwilling to take risks, or hesitant to reveal new parts of yourself, because the relationship does not feel like a safe container for transformation. Jung often spoke of the need to descend into the unconscious, to encounter the unknown within ourselves. If the person beside you discourages that descent, if they make you feel smaller when you long to grow larger, then they are not a companion on your path, but a barrier to it. It is also important to notice the energy of inspiration. Growth thrives when you feel inspired, when the bond sparks new ideas, fresh perspectives, and greater clarity. The wrong connection, however, dulls inspiration. Conversations feel repetitive, experiences feel shallow, and the future feels dim. Instead of feeling ignited, you feel extinguished. This is the unconscious speaking, showing you that the relationship has lost its transformative quality. A soul aligned with yours will never leave you feeling permanently uninspired. Because inspiration is the natural result of two energies meeting in authenticity. Without it, there is only routine, only the slow erosion of vitality. The absence of growth is not always dramatic. Sometimes it appears in small, almost invisible ways. You may notice that you no longer read the books that once fascinated you, that you no longer seek out the adventures you once dreamed of, that your conversations circle around the trivial and avoid the profound. These small shifts accumulate, and before long, you realize that the self you once were has been neglected. The most dangerous part is that you may convince yourself that this is simply life, that passion naturally fades, that dreams are for youth. But this is an illusion. The soul never loses its longing for growth. It only hides it when growth is denied. Jung believed that what is denied will eventually return, often in disruptive ways. If your growth is suppressed, it may return as frustration, resentment, or sudden outbursts of anger. It may appear as envy when you see others living fully, or as despair when you cannot remember the last time you felt alive. These symptoms are not random. They are signals that the deeper self is suffocating. They are reminders that you are not where you belong, that the bond you are in does not support your individuation, but prevents it. It is essential to understand that growth does not always mean grand achievements or constant excitement. Sometimes growth is quiet, subtle, and inward. The right person encourages you to explore the landscapes of your inner world, to reflect, to question, to face truths you once avoided. But when that inner work is consistently discouraged or ignored, the relationship becomes shallow. It no longer nourishes the depths of the soul, but merely sustains the surface, and the surface alone cannot satisfy the hunger of the psyche. The absence of growth is ultimately a betrayal of your destiny. Life demands that you move forward, that you expand, that you uncover the fullness of who you are. To remain where growth is impossible is to deny the self, the deepest center of your being. And though fear may hold you in place, the unconscious will never stop reminding you that something is wrong. If the person beside you does not awaken transformation, if they do not walk with you into deeper waters, then they are not the right companion. The wrong bond keeps you stagnant, but the right one, though imperfect, leads you ever closer to wholeness. The third sign that you are not with the right person is the experience of isolation within togetherness. This is perhaps one of the most painful forms of loneliness, for it occurs not in solitude but in the very presence of another. To sit beside someone and yet feel unseen, unheard, and untouched is a kind of spiritual exile. It reveals that the flow of psychic energy between two souls has withered, that the bond no longer nurtures connection, but instead deepens separation. Loneliness in solitude can be rich and meaningful, a time for reflection and communion with the self, but loneliness in relationship is an emptiness that corrodes the spirit. It signals that the union has ceased to function as a true meeting of souls. At the heart of human connection is the desire to be known, to be mirrored in our essence. Jung observed that relationships are mirrors, reflecting back to us our hidden depths, our light and shadow alike. When the bond is alive, you feel that your essence is recognized, that your presence matters, that your inner world is acknowledged. But when you are not with the right person, that recognition fades. You may share words, daily routines, or physical proximity, yet the deeper parts of you remain unseen. Communication becomes shallow, reduced to necessities or surface-level exchanges, while the soul hungers for depth. This hunger, when unmet, becomes loneliness, even in the closest physical proximity. Isolation within togetherness can manifest as silence that feels heavy, not the comfortable silence of two souls at ease, but the silence of disconnection, where words no longer flow naturally and the pauses between them feel like chasms. It can also appear in moments when you do speak your truth, but it is dismissed, minimized, or misunderstood. Over time, you learn to keep your thoughts inside, and the distance grows greater. You may even begin to doubt whether your inner world has value because it is not received or honored. Yet the psyche knows, at a deep level, that this isolation is unnatural, for the human spirit longs not only for self-discovery, but also for communion. In the wrong bond, gestures of intimacy may still exist, but they are hollow. A smile that does not reach the eyes, a touch that feels obligatory, conversations that avoid the essence of who you are. These create a paradoxical state in which you appear connected from the outside, but feel profoundly disconnected within. The unconscious reacts strongly to this contradiction. It sends signals in the form of dreams of abandonment, feelings of emptiness, or sudden waves of sadness that seem to have no external cause. These are the psyche's attempts to reveal that the relationship is not providing true togetherness, but only the appearance of it. This kind of loneliness is particularly damaging because it breeds self-alienation. When the soul does not feel received by another, it may turn against itself, questioning its worth. You may ask, "Am I too much? Am I not enough?" You may begin to censor yourself, to hide your longings, to retreat inward, all in an attempt to maintain harmony. But harmony built on silence is fragile and false. Jung reminds us that the self longs for authenticity, and any connection that discourages authenticity will ultimately fail to satisfy. True connection requires vulnerability, the courage to reveal one's shadow as well as one's light. The right person creates a space where such revelation feels safe, even if it is difficult. The wrong one fosters only performance, requiring you to show fragments of yourself while concealing the rest. This concealment breeds isolation, because no matter how close you appear physically, the deeper parts of you remain hidden in the unconscious, unshared, and unacknowledged. The loneliness that arises from this concealment is not a weakness. It is a symptom of truth. It is the psyche telling you that you are not being fully met. Sometimes the isolation takes the form of emotional absence. The other may be physically present, sharing your space, but emotionally distant, preoccupied, or closed off. In such moments, you may feel as if you are living parallel lives rather than a shared one. Your joys are not celebrated, your struggles not truly understood, your essence not truly known. Life becomes a performance of partnership rather than a genuine communion. This is not merely a lack of affection, but a lack of soul recognition, and without recognition, the relationship cannot sustain itself. The danger of remaining in such isolation is that you may grow accustomed to it, convincing yourself that this is simply what relationships become over time. You may rationalize the emptiness, telling yourself that love is meant to fade, that deep connection is an illusion. But these rationalizations are betrayals of the self, for the soul knows it was not made for such exile. Love does not eliminate loneliness entirely, but it should never amplify it. The presence of the right person may not always fill you with constant joy, but it should never leave you feeling unseen. Jung teaches that the psyche seeks wholeness, and wholeness requires encounter. To encounter the self fully often requires another, a mirror in which to see ourselves reflected. When that mirror is clouded, when the reflection is absent, the path toward wholeness becomes obstructed. To remain in such a relationship is to deny the psyche the nourishment it longs for. It is to accept exile instead of communion. The courage required is to recognize that loneliness in relationship is not inevitable, but a sign. It is a message from within that something essential is missing. that the bond no longer serves the deeper journey of the soul. The right companion does not remove all loneliness, for each soul must still walk its own path, but they lessen it by creating a space where the essence of who you are can be seen, heard, and embraced. The wrong companion leaves you isolated in their presence, and such isolation is not love, but the absence of it. To sit beside another and feel alone is one of the clearest signs that you are not where you are meant to be. The unconscious will not let this truth rest. It will remind you again and again through your feelings, your dreams, and your longings. To ignore these signals is to drift further from the self. To heed them is to step closer to authenticity, closer to the wholeness your soul seeks. Isolation within togetherness is not a burden you are meant to carry. It is a sign urging you to listen to your own depths and to seek the connection that mirrors your true being. The fourth sign that you are not with the right person is when you find yourself constantly living behind a mask. In Jungian psychology, this mask is called the persona, the image we present to the world, shaped by expectations, roles, and the need for acceptance. The persona is not inherently false. It is necessary for navigating society, for playing our part in the collective. But when the persona becomes the only face we wear in a relationship, when the deeper layers of the self are hidden away, then the bond is not built on authenticity, but on illusion. To live behind a mask is to conceal the essence of your being, and when this becomes the foundation of a relationship, it is a sign that the connection is not aligned with your truth. At first, wearing the mask may feel harmless, even necessary. You might adjust your words, your actions, your behavior to avoid conflict or to please the other. You laugh when you do not feel amused, agree when you do not truly agree, act calm when turmoil stirs within. Each moment may seem small, but over time the mask hardens. What began as a temporary adjustment becomes a habitual performance. You begin to forget what it feels like to show your unfiltered self, to speak words that arise directly from the heart. The relationship becomes a stage, and you its actor. Yet the unconscious knows this is unsustainable, for the psyche longs for wholeness, not performance. Living behind a mask creates a subtle but persistent tension. You may not even notice it at first, but it manifests as exhaustion, as a sense of unease, as the feeling that you cannot fully relax even in the presence of the one closest to you. This is because part of your energy is always devoted to maintaining the performance, ensuring that the mask does not slip. True intimacy, however, requires the absence of such tension. It requires the courage to reveal the shadow, the imperfections, the fears, the truths that the persona hides. Without that revelation, intimacy remains shallow. If you cannot reveal your authentic self, then you are not truly seen, and if you are not truly seen, you are not truly loved. You are loved only for the mask, not for the soul behind it. The danger of remaining behind a mask is not only the loss of authenticity, but also the loss of identity. When the persona dominates, the deeper self retreats. You may begin to feel uncertain of who you are outside the relationship, unsure of what you truly want, unable to distinguish your authentic desires from the expectations placed upon you. The mask consumes you, and the person you once knew yourself to be fades into shadow. Jung warned that when the persona becomes too dominant, the individual loses connection with the self, the deeper center of the psyche. To remain in a relationship that demands the mask is therefore to risk a profound disconnection from your own being. Dreams often reveal this inner conflict. You may dream of wearing costumes, of playing roles, of being on stage. You may dream of being chaste, unable to remove a disguise, or of speaking words that no one hears. These dreams are the unconscious crying out, reminding you that your true self is hidden and longs to emerge. The unconscious never accepts the mask as sufficient. it demands authenticity. If the relationship prevents that authenticity, then it is a sign that the bond is not right for your soul's journey. It is also important to see how the mask interacts with the shadow. The shadow contains the parts of ourselves we reject or repress, the anger, the fear, the desires we believe are unacceptable. A healthy relationship invites the integration of the shadow, allowing us to confront it without judgment. The wrong relationship, however, punishes any attempt to reveal the shadow. It demands that you keep those parts hidden, that you remain only the polished persona. As a result, the shadow grows stronger in the unconscious, often manifesting in unhealthy ways. Bursts of anger, secret resentment, hidden behaviors. The refusal to allow authenticity not only weakens the relationship, but also creates inner division. Living behind a mask may also manifest as the constant need to prove yourself. You may feel that love is conditional, dependent on whether you meet certain standards or fulfill certain roles. You cannot rest in the assurance of being valued simply for who you are. Instead, you must keep performing. This is not love, but conditional approval, and it creates an endless cycle of striving and exhaustion. The right person, by contrast, allows you to set aside the mask, to exist in your rawness, your imperfection, your humanity. If you cannot do this, if you feel always on stage, then you are not truly at home in the bond. The mask also blocks true growth, for growth requires honesty, and honesty requires vulnerability. If you are always protecting an image, you cannot face the truths that growth demands. You cannot confront your shadow, cannot reveal your doubts, cannot express your authentic needs. Instead, you remain frozen in the persona, unchanged and unfulfilled. This stagnation is a sign that the relationship is not leading you toward individuation, but away from it. For individuation is the process of becoming whole, and wholeness cannot coexist with pretense. There is also a spiritual dimension to the mask. When you hide your true self, you deny the self, the divine spark within you, the chance to shine. Jung saw the self as the guiding center of the psyche, the source of meaning and purpose. To suppress it for the sake of a relationship is to betray not only yourself, but the deeper call of life itself. The soul cannot thrive in falsehood. It demands authenticity, and any bond that requires constant disguise will eventually collapse under the weight of its own inauthenticity. To live behind a mask is to live in exile from your own essence. The right companion does not require this exile. They encourage the unveiling. They create a space where even your rawness and flaws are accepted, where your laughter is genuine, your tears welcome, your silence is understood. The wrong one makes the mask a necessity, and the longer you wear it, the more distant you become from yourself. The courage lies in recognizing that such performance is not sustainable, that love cannot be built on illusion, that the self demands to be seen. If you find that you are always performing, always editing yourself, always cautious lest the mask slip, then this is a clear sign that you are not with the right person. For love is not the preservation of the persona, but the revelation of the soul. And when the soul cannot be revealed, connection is not love but illusion. The unconscious will not let you rest in illusion forever. It will remind you, through dreams, through dissatisfaction, through the restless ache of inauthenticity, that you are not being true to yourself. To heed this call is to honor your destiny, to move closer to wholeness. To ignore it is to remain trapped in the mask, forever unseen. The fifth sign that you are not with the right person is the loss of meaning. Meaning, as Jung often reminded us, is not a luxury for the soul but a necessity. Without meaning, life becomes barren, empty, and suffocating. It is not enough for a relationship to provide companionship, security, or routine.
It must also awaken a sense of purpose, a feeling that life has depth and direction. When you are with the right companion, your sense of meaning expands. Your inner world feels nourished, your path feels illuminated, and even the struggles you face together feel purposeful. But when you are with the wrong person, meaning begins to fade. The days blur into repetition, your vision of the future becomes clouded, and the relationship feels more like a weight than a light. This erosion of meaning is one of the clearest signals from the unconscious that the bond does not serve your deeper journey. The loss of meaning can appear gradually, almost imperceptibly. At first, you may notice small things, conversations that once carried depth now feel shallow, dreams for the future that once inspired you now seem distant, or the enthusiasm you once felt for shared experiences now feels forced. Over time, this hollowness deepens, and you may begin to feel as though you are living by inertia, going through the motions without true vitality. A relationship without meaning is like a body without breath. It may continue to exist, but it no longer brings life. The unconscious responds to this absence with a profound restlessness. You may feel inexplicable sadness, a sense of emptiness, or an unshakable longing for something more. These are not mere moods, but messages, signs that the soul is starving for significance. Jung emphasized that meaning is not something imposed from the outside, but something that arises from within. A relationship cannot give you meaning in the absolute sense, but it can either support or obstruct your discovery of it. The right person encourages you to explore your depths, to follow the threads of your own destiny, to integrate the shadow and uncover the self. The wrong person, however, distracts you from that path. Instead of helping you discover meaning, they may anchor you in trivialities, discourage your search for purpose, or cloud your vision of the life you long to live. In such a bond, your energy becomes drained by the maintenance of appearances rather than directed toward the growth of the soul. The loss of meaning often shows itself in the way time is experienced. With the right companion, time feels rich, even in the simplest moments. A quiet evening can feel significant, filled with depth, because the connection itself has meaning. With the wrong person, time feels empty. Days pass, but nothing feels remembered, nothing feels sacred. The experiences lack weight, and the future feels like an endless extension of the present, devoid of direction. This flatness of time is a sign that the relationship is no longer in harmony with the archetypal drive toward purpose and transformation. Another way this loss manifests is through the collapse of imagination. Jung valued imagination as a bridge to the unconscious, a way to discover the symbols and archetypes that give life depth. In the wrong relationship, imagination withers. You may no longer dream about the future, no longer create visions for what could be, no longer feel the spark of possibility. Instead, you feel trapped in a narrow frame of existence, unable to see beyond it. The right person helps to expand your imagination, to dream with you, to build meaning together. The wrong one confines it, and with it, confines your soul. The absence of meaning also creates despair because it disconnects you from the self, the deeper center of the psyche. The self seeks wholeness, seeks to bring conscious and unconscious into harmony, seeks to align your life with your true nature. A relationship that robs you of meaning is one that obstructs this process. You may feel restless, sensing that your life is passing without truly being lived. You may feel anxious, fearing that you are drifting without purpose. Or you may feel numb, as though the spark of life has dimmed. These are all signs that the self is crying out for a deeper path, and that the relationship you are in is keeping you from hearing that call.
Dreams often reveal this loss of meaning. You may dream of wandering in empty landscapes, of living in houses without rooms, of searching for something that cannot be found. These are symbols of the barren inner state created by a bond that lacks significance. The unconscious does not tolerate such emptiness quietly. It insists on reminding you that you are not living in alignment with your deeper purpose. To ignore these messages is to risk a life half lived, but to heed them is to rediscover the path toward authenticity. It is important to distinguish between temporary struggles and the deep loss of meaning. All relationships go through difficult seasons, and such seasons do not necessarily signal misalignment. What matters is whether, even in difficulty, there remains a sense of purpose. With the right person, challenges feel like part of the journey, obstacles that carry meaning because they contribute to growth. With the wrong person, challenges feel empty, like suffering without reason, conflict without transformation. If the struggle leads nowhere, if it only drains and diminishes, then it is not the kind of challenge that builds meaning, but the kind that destroys it. Meaning is not always dramatic. It does not always come through grand experiences or extraordinary events. Sometimes it comes through the simple feeling that your life is aligned, that your connection with another reflects your inner truth. The wrong bond lacks this alignment, and without it, even the most impressive outer appearances cannot sustain the soul. The psyche knows when meaning is absent, and it will never allow you to fully rest until you rediscover it. To lose meaning in a relationship is to lose the thread of your destiny. For destiny is not a fixed script, but the unfolding of your authentic self, and it requires companions who walk with you toward greater wholeness. If the relationship dims your sense of purpose, if it clouds your vision of what life could be, if it robs you of the feeling that your journey matters, then it is not aligned with the self. The soul cannot thrive in meaninglessness. It demands significance, direction, purpose. The right person does not create your meaning, but they support it, they expand it, they help you see it more clearly. The wrong person diminishes it, leaving you wandering in a barren landscape. The courage required is to admit when this has happened, to recognize that the loss of meaning is not a passing mood but a message. To ignore it is to betray the self. To honor it is to step back onto the path of authenticity. Meaning is the lifeblood of the psyche, and any relationship that deprives you of it is not the right one. The sixth sign that you are not with the right person is the absence of movement toward wholeness. Jung described the central task of life as individuation, the process of integrating the conscious and unconscious, the light and the shadow, the masculine and feminine within, so that we may become whole. Love, when authentic, is not merely a source of comfort, but a catalyst for this process. It does not protect you from yourself. It invites you into yourself. The right bond does not leave you unchanged. It pushes you to confront what is hidden, to face your fears, to grow into the fullness of your being. But when you are with the wrong person, the relationship does not call you toward wholeness. Instead, it diverts you from it. You remain fragmented, disconnected, perhaps even smaller than you were before. This failure to move toward wholeness is a profound sign that the relationship is misaligned with your soul's journey. Wholeness is not perfection. It is not about becoming flawless or free from conflict. Rather, it is about integration, about learning to hold contradictions within yourself, about recognizing and embracing the parts you once denied. A relationship that is aligned with your deeper nature will bring these contradictions to light. It will make you aware of your shadow, your wounds, your hidden potential. Though this can be difficult, It is meaningful because it draws you nearer to authenticity.
The wrong relationship, however, either ignores these deeper aspects or actively suppresses them. Instead of helping you integrate, it keeps you divided. You may find yourself cutting off parts of yourself to fit into the bond, denying your emotions, silencing your voice, hiding your true desires. This dismemberment of the self is the opposite of individuation, and it leads to emptiness rather than wholeness. A key aspect of wholeness is the ability to face and integrate the shadow. The shadow holds all that we repress: our anger, our desires, our fears, our weaknesses. In the right bond, the shadow is not denied but invited into awareness. The relationship becomes a mirror in which you can see the shadow reflected, and though uncomfortable, this allows for growth. In the wrong bond, the shadow is either constantly provoked in destructive ways or completely suppressed. You may find yourself hiding anger, burying your longings, or feeling ashamed of your vulnerabilities. Instead of learning from the shadow, you run from it, and the more you run, the further you move from wholeness. Another part of wholeness is the balance between anima and animus, the inner feminine and inner masculine energies that exist within all people. The right person helps awaken these energies in a way that leads to harmony. They encourage receptivity, intuition, and creativity on one hand, and courage, clarity, and assertiveness on the other. But when you are with the wrong person, these inner energies remain blocked or distorted. You may find yourself over-identifying with one side while neglecting the other. For example, you may suppress your sensitivity to appear strong or deny your strength to remain pleasing. In either case, the relationship is not serving your balance, but disturbing it. Without this balance, the psyche cannot move toward integration. Dreams often reveal when a relationship is not guiding you toward wholeness. You may dream of broken objects, unfinished journeys, or fragmented selves. You may dream of searching for someone who cannot be found, or of being trapped in a place with no exit. These are symbols of fragmentation, signs that the unconscious is aware of the misalignment. The psyche speaks in images, and when it shows you these symbols, it is telling you that the bond you are in is not helping you move toward the self, but holding you in pieces. The absence of movement toward wholeness can also be felt in daily life. You may feel that you are shrinking, that you are less alive, less authentic, less connected to your deeper self than you once were. You may notice that your creativity has dimmed, that your curiosity has faded, that your spirit feels dulled. This is not simply a matter of changing circumstances. It is a sign that the relationship is obstructing your growth. When you are with the right person, you feel more yourself, not less. You expand, not contract. Even in moments of conflict, you sense that you are becoming more whole. With the wrong person, the opposite occurs. The more you give, the less of yourself remains. Wholeness also involves a sense of meaning and destiny, a feeling that your life is unfolding in alignment with something greater. The right person supports this unfolding. They may not walk the same exact path, but they walk beside you in a way that allows you to remain true to your journey. The wrong person, however, pulls you off the path. You may feel as though you are living someone else's life, following someone else's script, disconnected from your own calling. Over time, this misalignment leads to despair, because the soul cannot thrive when it is not in harmony with its destiny. It is also worth noting that wholeness is not a solitary achievement. Though individuation is deeply personal, relationships are one of the most powerful arenas in which it takes place. A true partner reflects your unconscious back to you, challenges your illusions, and helps you grow. If the person beside you does not do this, if they leave you stagnant, fragmented, or hidden, then they are not serving your individuation. Instead, they are blocking it.
And to remain in such a situation is to remain in exile from your own potential. The unconscious does not allow this exile quietly. It sends signals, dissatisfaction, restlessness, longing for something more. These are not weaknesses but messages. They are the psyche's way of telling you that you are not moving toward wholeness. To ignore them is to betray yourself, but to heed them is to step closer to the self. The courage required is to trust that your soul knows its own path, even when it leads you away from comfort or familiarity. The right relationship does not erase conflict, nor does it guarantee constant happiness, but it always moves you closer to authenticity, closer to integration, closer to wholeness. The wrong one may provide stability or routine, but it leaves you fragmented and unfulfilled. The difference lies in whether the bond calls you deeper into yourself or further away. If you find that you are losing pieces of yourself, that you are becoming less whole rather than more, then this is a clear sign that you are not with the right person. To move toward wholeness is the deepest calling of the soul. Any relationship that diverts you from this calling is not love but illusion. Love is the path to the self, the path to authenticity, the path to integration. If the bond you are in takes you away from this path, then it is not the bond meant for you. To listen to this truth is to honor your destiny. To ignore it is to remain forever divided. The choice is always before you, to stay in fragmentation or to step toward wholeness.